What is going on, Earth 2 novice, enthusiasts, and everyone in between? Welcome to another episode of Earth 2 News. This is a very special episode. I'm going to be reading, basically going through a transcript almost of the new release of information. It's not quite a white paper. The white paper is going to be coming, but Earth 2 did put out approximately a 40-page document, and I'm going to be reading it word for word, as well as adding some of my opinions and interjections here and there, so you can kind of see how I'm digesting it mentally. But this is specifically for people who don't want to read it themselves, and also people who are interested in my take and my perspective on the information that's being dished out. Now, this is basically a roadmap that sums up not only what we've seen happen, what we can expect to happen in the next year or so, but also see around the corner a little bit and start speculating on what future developments we could start expecting from the Earth 2 team. Now, I did have to cut it up into 2 episodes because it is so long. I intended to make this initially for my podcast, and this is probably going to be the first couple of episodes on my podcast. If you're listening to this on my podcast, or if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, I invite you to not only subscribe here, but also venture on over to the other medium. That way you are able to get the best of both worlds, because I will have exclusive information that's only going to be going out through YouTube videos, and exclusive information that will only be done through podcasts. So again, to make sure that you're caught up on everything and you don't miss a beat, I would highly suggest subscribing to both. You're also going to want to make sure you check out the links in the show notes. There'll probably be links to get you to the podcast from YouTube, the YouTube from podcast, but also ways to win free land, money, NFTs, stay informed, get exclusive content that I do through email and not through either one of these podcast or YouTube episodes. And you're also going to be able to get in touch with me if that's something that you're looking to do. But without further ado, let's get into the episode itself. Again, this is part of a 2-part series, so if this is the second part, you're definitely going to want to make sure you start with the first part. And if this is the first part, once you're done, keep an eye out. There's probably going to be a link to the second half so you can be fully informed, and a lot of the good stuff is at the end, actually kind of throughout. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you check out both. All right, so it is late at night, and I've had a long day. I'm very tired, but I wanted to read the new Earth 2 document that just came out, and I figured if I'm reading it, I may as well fire up a camera and mic and read it for you guys. I didn't feel like setting up my nice, better quality mic or camera or the lighting or any of that jazz, so bear with me. I'm just going right off my built-in mic, or mic. Told you I'm tired. Going off my built-in camera, and hopefully the audio is doable. I've tried recording this a couple of times, and it is not cooperating with me. So 40-page draft summary update. Now, it starts off with a disclosure, and I will tell you guys, I'm not going to read every single line, every single word, I should say. There's some stuff that is not narrator friendly. And also, again, bear with me. I'm tired. I'm not the best reader, even when I'm fully caffeinated and wide awake. So bear with me. Speed it up if you want to. I always suggest, 1.5x speed. And if you want to check out this document, I will probably have a link to it in the show notes. And I'm going to add a link to it in the automatic email that goes out when you fill out the contact form. So if it's not in one of those spots, it'll definitely be in the other. If you're following on my podcast, there are going to be some terms that I do a better job and a deeper, more thorough job at explaining that will come up here. Some will be explained in the document, but I'm not going to go into tangents. So if you want a deeper explanation of any of the terms, or like what's the concept behind this, check out my other episodes. Most of them are going to be on my YouTube channel. Again, there's going to be a link to that below as well. Right now, the name is Earth 2 News on YouTube, but I've changed it. I might change it again, but as of right now, it's still Earth 2 News. And again, I've got podcast episodes as well. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, do a quick search, use the keywords that you're not familiar with, because like I said, I'm not going to waste too much time going down tangents. What I am going to start off with is, and I will interject and make some tangents here and there, but I will try to keep it at minimum because I need to get to bed. So I'm going to start off with some facts, some stats that we've got here. And obviously I'm not going to be reading table of contents. I can't, read a graph or any kind of visual. So back to the stats, which I can read. 90 million tiles sold, over 14 million paid out to players, over 150,000 monthly active users, over 5 million property trades, over 112 million essence earned, over 170,000 followers, over 230,000 hollow buildings, over 10 minutes average daily visitor time, over 20% of the traffic is coming from the US, over 1.4 million jewels crafted, over 1.6 million player sold jewels, and over 72,000 luminous jewels. And in this next number we're going to talk about 274 brilliant jewels. If you guys aren't familiar with jewels, again, I do a better job at explaining jewels and upgrading them, luminous and all that other jazz. Luminous jewels are your properties create jewels, essence, and resources, soon to be resources, each day. Essence, or rather ether is created, converted into essence. Essence is kind of like a replacement for work. So when you have resources, when you have wood, you can't just build a wood cabin, but you also don't want to spend dollars. So essence is kind of the way I've come to understand it is like the exchange of work. So you're able to build up a collection of essence, and when something has to be transformed into something else, you've got a bunch of lumber, you want to turn it into a log cabin, requires some work. Essence is that. So essence is sweat, so energy, whatever you want to call it, transformational energy. So you can use essence, you can spend your essence to upgrade your jewels to a higher level, the highest level being luminous. But they also said that randomly and rarely, when you pay to upgrade it to the top level of luminous, you will randomly have the chance to have it become a brilliant, which is a higher level that can't be bought. You cannot pay to bring your jewels to a brilliant level. So that makes them extremely rare. However, we didn't know how rare, how infrequent this event of paying for luminous and getting brilliant, how often that's going to happen. Now we have a rough estimate. We've only got 274, not 274,000, 274 brilliant jewels out of 72,000. That is way less than 1%. So to say it's rare is an understatement. Rare, scarcity, normally correlates with value. So they're going to make, and I explain more about why you want to upgrade them, what them being more powerful and effective at rendering things in their effects and everything. I do much better video job in another episode. So check that out, podcast episode or video, whatever. There's a disclaimer I'm not going to read. Here's the short version. These are rough notes. This is not considered a white paper. This is not investor prospectus. This is not a guarantee. There's not a warranty. What they are doing is basically showing us behind the scenes on some of their notes, subject to change. They might push some of this stuff back. They might decide to do away with it altogether. They might make some edits to it. So this is just us being able to get a glimpse as to what they've got on their roadmap in real time. But this is not cement. This is, like I said, it's not investment advice. This is not a white paper, not a prospectus, not any of that jazz, no guarantees, no warranties, information just to, and if you have feedback, that's the next thing they ask for. If you have feedback on any of this, or maybe some stuff that's not discussed, or you got some ideas, they're open. They're going to keep a temporary feedback email open. I think they said they were going to do it for 2 weeks. Feedback@earth2.io is where you can send that feedback. Next page is going to be table of contents. Like I said, I'm not reading that. Now we're getting into the introduction, starting with a quote from Shane Isaac. So introduction, the people's metaverse. Shane Isaac quoted saying, "The place you now stand is digitally represented inside of Earth 2, manifesting the beginning of an omnipresence imperative toward achieving the ultimate goal of a metaverse which feels as though it lives, breathes, and exists around you wherever you may stand on this planet." Earth 2 is a futuristic concept for a second Earth, a metaverse between virtual and physical reality in which real-world geolocations on a sectioned map correspond to user-generated digital virtual environments. These environments produce digital assets, can be owned, bought, and sold, and in the near future, deeply customized. This draft update will detail how these digital environments will continue to evolve far beyond their current capabilities. Earth 2 will begin as a pristine, untouched, uninhabited virtual version of Earth. It will ultimately be player designed, created, built, and owned using the technology developed by the Earth 2 team. Each piece of virtual land will maintain an irrefutable link back to the physical world through its unique corresponding geolocational attribute. Now, this is one thing, quick little tangent. This is one thing, if you guys have been following me for any period of time, I keep beating this into your heads. This is the major differentiator. I am not talking down about any other metaverse project. There are some that are complete scams. There are some that you can already, Decentraland, you can go around and play, and everyone's comparing Decentraland to Earth 2. Okay, there's Ford, there's Chevy, there's Mercedes. These things are all not killing each other. They're all competing. They're coexisting. This one's better. This one's better. This one's better. Whatever. The major differentiator, the one thing that I can tell you that separates Earth 2 and why Earth 2, it's not the only metaverse that I support and that I've invested in, but it is my number one. It is my favorite. If I can only pick one, it would be Earth 2. The reason is Earth 2 is a 1-to-1 scale replica of the Earth. None of the other real metaverse projects can say that. So that means that there's stuff that Earth 2 will be able to do, like geolocation correlated interactions and engagements and advertising and statistics and data and all that other fun stuff that none of the other metaverse projects can do because they are not a 1-to-1 scale replica. There's no relationship. When you're in Miami, you can't have the same relationship with metaverse or with Decentraland, with Sandbox, with any of the other projects like you can with Earth 2. Now, yeah, there are some other metaverse projects who have come out after Earth 2. I'm not even going to mention their name because they're not worth it, because they're claiming they're going to be a 1-to-1 scale replica of the Earth, yada, yada, yada. They started coming out right when there was all this hype about Earth 2. So I don't give them any credit. They are nowhere near as far along in the project as Earth 2. So I could be wrong. They could somehow develop faster, raise more money, get more awareness and everything else, but they're not showing any signs of doing that. So if you're going with a metaverse project because it's 1-to-1 scale replica of Earth, which I suggest you do, Earth 2 is, in my opinion, the only one that's shown any sort of legitimacy. And again, I'm involved with other metaverse projects, but getting back to it, that is a major differentiator. you can do anything on Earth 2. Earth 2 can develop anything that's being done. They can host concerts like Decentraland. They can have special engagements. They can have relationships with all these big brands. They can do anything that the other projects can do. Those projects can't do everything that Earth 2 can do. All right. All right. What is built inside Earth 2 will be the result of either player time, investment, effort, or a mixture of all three. This will serve to create a justifiable extrinsic value on everything that exists within Earth 2 and therefore reinforce a true play-to-earn ecosystem. Launching in November of 2020, Earth 2 experienced unprecedented growth and remains the biggest registry of virtual land holdings in the world across all metrics, including the amount of land sold and the number of unique people who own that land. Using common growth measurement rules in the industry, within 12 months of launch, Earth 2 is the most successful consumer startups in history in terms of user adoption, revenue, user-to-user sales, and engagement rates. It is impossible to ignore the fact that the metaverse space is an exciting one, with a growing number of reasons as to why reputable companies such as JP Morgan are claiming it will be a $1 trillion market opportunity in yearly revenues. Did I say marketing or market? It's supposed to be market. I don't know what I said. I'm very tired. I need coffee, but I want to sleep. But at this early stage, the metaverse space is convoluted and is fast becoming a difficult area for people to understand, navigate, and most importantly, discover. Next section, Web3, the metaverse, and Earth 2. Web 2, or the internet as we know it today, is largely represented by search engines and applications that people utilize to find, view, and interact with content displayed on mostly 2D web pages controlled by centralized sources. There is popular discussion around what Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 are, and the next expert in the field will provide a slight variation to the previous definition each and every time. There is, however, a general consensus that Web 1 was launched in the mid to late 80s and was created to be used by mostly large corporations and not for individuals, the Reed era. Web 2 began somewhere in the first 5 years of the 2000s, and due to more widespread learning of programming languages, frameworks, tools, and networking, more people were able to build on the web, which in turn increased user-to-user interactive websites, games, content creation, and social media services, all delivered in a progressively graphically appealing 2D styled environment, the right era. And now there is a general consensus that Web3 will be heavily focused on the introduction of a decentralized web that functions around decentralized applications, decentralized finance, and irrefutable ownership provided by various blockchains. The user becomes the owner, the ownership era. And I think those are great definitions. While more can be added to them, I think that that's a great bare bones explanation as to Web 1, 2, and 3. And those are pretty irrefutable as well. It is also widely accepted that Web3 will include the broader introduction of immersive 3D experiences as opposed to the current 2D format provided in Web 2. Long term, it is anticipated that most experiences inside of Web3 will take place inside 3D environments, as evidenced by the natural association people have formed between Web3 and the metaverse. Now, they're not completely dependent. There could be Web3 without the metaverse, but yes, that is something that is often associated with it. And I think it's a great analogy because it's like one-dimensional, two-dimensional, now I can move left, right, up, and down, and then three-dimensional, now I've got some depth to it. Well, the depth to the screen would be immersion, AR and VR. So I think those are really good analogies, and that's how I like to explain it to people is 1D, 2D, 3D. What's Web 4 going to be? I think that's going to be when we possibly upload consciousness to the network, maybe some Neuralink kind of stuff. There is no doubt, just speculating, there is no doubt that Web 2 is the current on-ramp for the transition into Web 3, but Earth 2 is positioned to introduce ways in which Web 2 and Web 3 data is represented in visual maps, locations, and 3D-centric environments, and will focus on capitalizing on this opportunity. Displaying and connecting Web 3 and external metaverse-driven experiences is one core area that Earth 2 will leverage to cement itself into the broader progress and representation of Web 3. Exciting projects, whether they be Web 3-driven, metaverse-driven, or somewhere in between, emerge daily around the world. It is difficult to discover these projects and even harder to ascertain which of them are popular and may spark the viewer's own personal interest. Discovering these projects on 2D Web 2 websites also leaves a lot to be desired. Earth 2 is the biggest central point of ownership for the virtual real estate in the world, and our vision is for the growth we have experienced, the technology we have been building, and our passionate community to assist us in achieving our next goal. Earth 2's goal is to become a central point for Web 3 and other metaverse projects by providing the ability to display, link, and create visual representations of them and their data within the Earth 2 metaverse and the 3D digital Earth-size world we are building. Without early users, subsequent users do not join the platform. Those early users are often rarely recognized and certainly not significantly rewarded or compensated inside Web 2. It is the early adopters, the pioneers, that drive the popularity of the service or the successful nature of a product. Web3 provides a way for projects to reward those early adopters with the likes of tokens and NFTs. So when the project wins, so do the greatest supporters. Think about the first people who were getting on Shopify and Amazon. They didn't benefit from other people coming on. They did a lot of the groundwork. They met a lot of the frustrations. They had to figure out and trailblaze themselves. Some of them, you could argue, did capitalize over selling the knowledge, and then they'd sell you a how-to Shopify kind of course. But that's completely different than being an initial supporter. That was something that they went out and they became content creators. But there's nothing like, imagine buying Tesla stock very early on. Those people are rewarded when Tesla succeeded. Web3 mirrors that ability where you're not just burdened with the early adopter. Malcolm Gladwell has a great breakdown of early adopters and how they really bear the most of the pain and where the tipping point is. The book is called Tipping Point. I highly suggest you check that out. He's also got a great, I believe it's a TED Talk. Malcolm Gladwell, look on YouTube. Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point Talk, and it'll be on YouTube. I believe it's a TED Talk, but don't hold me to it. Even as the centralized platform it is currently, Earth2 has uniquely been able to achieve its mutually beneficial relationship with our players, resulting in tens of thousands of players not only making, but being paid out over 14 million US dollars to date for trading virtual land and assets on the Earth2 platform. This has all been achieved inside a fiat-driven environment, and it is anticipated that the introduction of Web3 to Earth2 will see an exponential growth in all metrics while allowing us to continue rewarding our early adopter players in addition to the early rewards claimed through land ownership alone. This draft update marks the beginning of the much anticipated move to decentralization and tokenization of digital assets inside Earth2. The first step will see the tokenization of the core player element Essence, followed by plans to decentralize the ownership of close to 100 million player-owned tiles to date by minting the digital assets as NFTs on chain. This is something that we've discussed and we've talked about, the way that, I don't want to say it's the titles, the registry numbers. Some blockchain familiar people recognize very early on that when you purchase land, the tiles, you're able to see the unique identifiers, and they don't correspond with geolocations. While you can use geo coordinates to find land, the registry is not, it's like a serialized number that would be more of a blockchain kind of registry. So this is something they've been planning, and now we're seeing it brought to fruition. Another quote from Shane. I see, and this one's slightly longer, I see Web3 going as far as possibly correcting some of the global distribution of wealth and providing more opportunities for the average person who spends time online to become part of that distribution. I have no issue with large corporations becoming part of Web3 and building inside the metaverse. In fact, they need to have a presence there, which will be extremely beneficial for them, but that presence should be directly aligned with the players and consumers through decentralized asset ownership. So part of this scenario would see them operating the metaverse on an open permissionless basis, as we see with many other metaverse projects, but which is not currently the case for them. And partaking in the game and platform as an autonomous entity to work or trade with other players to achieve their ambitions and more. This is the reason we have implemented a very simple token allocation system that provides most of the tokens back to players as rewards through play to earn inside Earth2's metaverse. This is also one of the reasons we are introducing the definition of the people's metaverse, given Earth2's plans to create an in-depth governance system that will see land tiles becoming NFTs that feature multidimensional voting rights and invites large corporations to work alongside us as players instead of above us. So moving along, now we're getting to section 2, Earth2 player. All right, the player. People accessing Earth2 are known as players. The player is the most important part of Earth2, and each player has the opportunity to participate in all Earth2 activities. There should be a constant reminder that each player inside Earth2 represents a soul in real life, as a fellow citizen should be treated with respect and courtesy. We initially expect 5 types of players to exist within Earth2. Inside and between each group, we anticipate alliances, collaboration, guilds, and more to form. In some cases, one player will spread expertise across multiple groups, but in most cases, we expect groups to collaborate in order to achieve mutually beneficial results in a predominantly play-to-earn ecosystem. All right, the base player. The base player profile represents what every player inside of Earth2 will have access to or will be able to do, whether they branch into other player categories or not. These players will predominantly be consumers looking for experiences, representation, socialization, play-to-earn opportunities, competition rewards, and more. The base player can create a free account, create their own avatar, customize and accessorize their avatar, travel/move via foot or vehicles, limited storage depending on their form of transportation, store essence and e-dollars, access to a balanced history sheet, carry devices for exploration or gameplay, access the marketplace, bazaar, and bidding hub, play to earn. The landowner. The landowner is a player who owns land on Earth 2. Landowners will have direct access to the following unique gameplay features. Voting. Every unique player inside of Earth 2 will have voting rights, but landowners will have additional voting power. Please see voting for more information. Building. Placement and display of various roads and buildings, ecosim, hollow, other created, user-created, mentors, and more. Ether, detection, which leads to essence processing, production, and collection. Resource detection and production. Jewel production, advertising, trade, storage. Base for the economic simulator, EPLs, Earth2 property locators, work like URLs and create alphanumeric link to that property. Customization and modification of the land, leasing land, hiring players to manage our property, hiring players to defend your property from attacks in PvP mode, and play to earn. Ecosim player. The EcoSim player is a player who specializes in various forms of the Earth2 economic simulator system. These players usually possess a unique skill set and knowledge on how to get the most out of a property, among many other things. Landowners will be able to hire and collaborate with EcoSim players and allow them to run their properties with a customizable, binding, and enforceable automated contract in place to split yield from properties the EcoSim player runs. Their stuff that they'll be able to do, resource production, resource management, resource trading, resource transportation where relevant, ecosim buildings, research and management, inventory management, property management, jewel harvesting, jewel crafting, jewel slotting, ether to essence production, resource exploration, build automated defense systems for properties, and play to earn. The gamer is a player who specializes in playing the real-time traditional video games that will exist as PvP options inside the Earth2 metaverse. These are usually talented individuals with good cognitive skills, a great skill set depending on what type of game they are playing. The PvP game inside Earth2 will be updated in modified version of sci-fi real-time shooter Drone the game. The gamer can create and customize drones specific purposes inside the game. Fly drones to attack or defend properties inside a battle arena. Create and manage guilds, harvest in-game, steal, pillage, determine vehicle classes and objectives, control territory/properties, work as a gamer to earn red co-op energy/currency, master jewel slotting on vehicles, play to earn. More activities will be made possible as more games are introduced and made available within Earth2. Quick little side note on that, Drone is a game that Earth2 acquired a couple of months ago, not very long ago. I think it was in October. Drone is a game where you build customized drones that then fight each other. They also have terraforming in that game and a bunch of other skill sets that made that acquisition make a lot of sense. So they bought out that company, basically absorbed that team, and now they're using their expertise to make Drone the first official game that will be launched within Earth2. But Earth2 has also mentioned from its inception that they aim to be a platform for other games. So if you develop a game, you can develop it to be hosted on Earth2, and that way you don't have to deal with building out an environment. You just build the characters, the plot, and rules and physics or whatever else. Not really familiar with game development, but you wouldn't have to spend time building Gotham City or building San Andreas or building all these different maps. You can just use Earth2. So now that brings us to the creator. The creator is a player who specializes in areas of creativity within Earth2. These players possess a unique level of creativity and have the ability to produce things of interest anywhere they go. One of our core beliefs is to support player creativity and user-generated content wherever possible. We expect the creative component of Earth2 to become widespread over time, giving creator players various opportunities to play to earn from the content they create. Creator players will be able to create and earn from the following: megacities, hollow buildings, customized ecosim buildings, customized residential and commerce buildings, customized emotes, mint your creations, battle arena creation, video and photo content via Earth2's social media network, advertisement/logo creations, portal customization, external NFT collections. Working as a content creator, each time you successfully sell one of your creations, you will earn yellow co-op energy. Play to earn. So now we've heard of yellow co-op energy and red co-op energy. So these are going to be some other, I guess, commodities or mediums of value that can be exchanged. And it seems like we've got a color coordination to identify and maybe even give special power or value to them. Now we're moving to section 3, the economy. All right, the e-dollar. E-dollars is a stable in-game currency pegged to the US dollar value. Real-world fiat currency can be used to purchase e-dollars. E-dollars are presently used to purchase new land from other players, player-traded jewels, EPLs, and hollow building constructions. We plan to replace e-dollar payment for some other purchasable digital asset in favor of essence. However, e-dollars will remain an option to purchase new land for a longer term in order to provide new players with a low barrier of entry into asset ownership and subsequent gameplay inside Earth 2. E-dollars can be withdrawn back to US dollar via one of the internal Earth 2 withdrawal systems. Earth 2 has a large full-time customer service and accounting team to process withdrawals, and has processed player withdrawals totaling over 14 million US dollar to date. The land, virtual real estate. Earth's design area. Earth's entire area is divided into 10 by 10 meter tiles, which are the basis of everything on Earth 2. Players can buy a single tile or a continuous cluster of up to 750 tiles to form a property. What makes each property distinct is their shape, size, character of landscape, and the buildings placed upon it. Landowners, owners of a property, have sole discretion on what can be built, advertised, or utilized on their property. A player cannot build on another player's property unless there is permission granted by the landowner to do so. And they've mentioned leases and things like that, so they have a lot planned. Tier 1 and Tier 2 properties. We're now issuing Tier 2 properties. So if you buy property from Earth 2 directly, not from a private person on the secondary market, it can only be Tier 2. No more new tier 1 land is going to be sold. Properties inside Earth 2 are presently split into 2 tiers, Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 properties represent any property purchased by a player up until early December 2021. After this date, Tier 2 properties became the standard property type of all new land purchases. Various key attributes differentiate Tier 1 and Tier 2 properties, and this is detailed as follows. Tier 1 tiles have guaranteed ether and essence conversion and essence generated, while for Tier 2, the conversion and generation is unpredictable. In addition to guaranteed essence generation, Tier 1 tiles have other generative abilities that Tier 2 tiles do not. In the future, Tier 1 property owners will have full access to discoverable resources, while for Tier 2 tiles, access will be restricted. Resource saturation for Tier 1 is also boosted compared to the standard saturation for Tier 2. Tier 1 tiles will also continue to generate LIT, L-I-T, which is land income tax, on a periodic basis, and have the ability to assign EPLs, while Tier 2 tiles will not. Tier 1 tiles will remain their land class under Tier 1, while Tier 2 tiles will be labeled generally and no longer be distinguished by land classes. So now we've got a chart. I'll try to skim through it. It's like a breakdown table, Tier 1 versus Tier 2 overview table. I'd say you'd probably want to just check this out. It's page 14. So we're not even halfway there. All right, essence. The foundations of Earth 2 are intrinsic to the attributes of our physical Earth, yet there are some notable differences in how natural resources can be gathered, processed, and produced. From an environmental perspective inside Earth 2, essence allows inhabitants to make our cake and eat it. After Earth 2 was created, one core piece of technology was quickly discovered: the elementarizer. That's a new one. It was capable of reading the string echoes of atoms and creating essence from the highly concentrated hydrogen amounts found inside ether, from which it could then reproduce any other material. All of a sudden, players could produce raw materials seemingly out of thin air, so long as these raw materials could be found in the ground close by and in sufficient amounts. Elementarizers soon became what we now know as mentars. Much easier to say. Now I get where the name came from, that second part of it. Elementarizers became known as mentars, and players started to construct and place them on their properties. In addition to ether detection, it wasn't just rare earth or oil that mentars could help replicate. Limestone, water, even wood could be produced in excellent quality. Interestingly, withdrawing hydrogen from the atmosphere in huge amounts made it necessary to refill it by taking water from the oceans, helping keep the rising sea levels at bay. Clever. However, there are limits to this technology. The string echoes need to be validated to function properly. Sounds like blockchain. In other words, a player is unable to simply put a piece of gold in the ground and expect it to multiply. The replicated material requires official validation by the Earth 2 keepers. This validation causes binary representation of soil around the resources to evaluate the compatibility of the complicated material within its binary core and recognize it as a resource. Otherwise, the reproduction will not work. There currently exist hundreds of millions of validated resources inside Earth 2. However, a player will sometimes have the opportunity to claim and validate the existence of a resource that the Earth 2 keepers may have missed. This is known as resource validation and is described further in the resource section. To summarize, essence is the direct byproduct of ether, created through the process of transforming ether, which evaporates from player-owned tiles and is detected by mentar. Should be mentars. by the mentor. Never mind. Essence utility inside Earth2 Metaverse is vast and will become an ERC20 utility token on the Ethereum blockchain, which is something we've been speculating for a while. I wasn't sure if it was going to be ERC20 or ERC721. Ways to get Essence. Essence is something that, for the most part, needs to be earned through labor and effort by the player inside Earth2, like I said. So representation of energy, work done. Essence can be earned through regular game activity, but players can maximize their Essence income through strategic play. There are three primary ways for a player to acquire Essence on Earth2 at an entry level. Ownership, which is what we've currently got. Currently, the only way of obtaining Essence in Earth2 is through the construction and use of mentors on player properties to detect and quickly transform Ether into Essence. This is the entry method of Essence generation for landowner players, and this method will distribute enough Essence for Earth2 to function as a metaverse. The logical formula for earning Essence from land is tiles owned times time passed times player activity times quality of play equals Essence. Tiles owned. The amount of ether evaporated is directly linearly tied to the amount of tiles owned by the player. Time passed. Ether is evaporated every 24 hours. Player activity. The player is required to actively claim ether and convert it to gain essence. Ether that is not claimed will vanish after a time, requiring a player to remain vigilant in order to make progress in Earth 2. Quality of play. Before ether can be claimed, it must be detected by the mentor. Good play will increase ether evaporation and maximize ether detection. All right, engagement. Rewards are separate essence gains tied to a specific game activity and actions inside the Earth2 metaverse. There are currently no essence rewards implemented. However, future game modes will lean heavily on essence as a reward for collaboration and cooperation between players to achieve a common goal. There are two examples of this upcoming essence bonus reward system within Earth2. The first will focus on rewarding players who collectively validate resource on property staking claim on the player resource validation system. The other will focus on further rewarding unique players who actively process ether into essence on adjacent properties regularly. The most active countries will receive the essence bonus distributed among the most active players and co-op groups, i.e. megacities, inside each winning country. There will be scores of new reward systems added to Earth2 over the time based on play-to-earn concept of rewarding players for their participation in specific in-game activities. Adoption via airdrops. Airdrops are isolated essence rewards given by Earth2. These are usually retrospective rewards tied to prior player activity, but they can also be tied to a new feature, service, or promotion. Airdrops will not follow a strict foreseeable schedule to avoid conditioning players to expect them, which diminishes both the value of the airdrop and that of the game activity it is rewarding. I need some honey or something. I haven't spoken this much in a while. The first and only airdrop to date has been the Essence distribution commitment, which was a gift to early adopters, which I very much appreciate. 20% of the gifted essence was handed out immediately, with the remaining amount being distributed as guaranteed essence yield tied to their tier 1 properties. There will be additional airdrops in the future. If a player expects to be part of a retrospective airdrop, they will need to have, at minimum, an account on Earth2. Accounts on Earth2 are free to create. Aside from the above 3 entry points, the only remaining way to acquire essence will be to purchase it from another player, selling it on a decentralized exchange. Once a player owns essence, there will be other ways to increase their holding via staking, interactive gameplay with other players, and other mechanics yet to be released. Essence utility. It's a big thing people are saying with crypto and NFT. The big question is, what is the utility? Aside from hype and you saying that this is a cool NFT and this one looks kind of like this one, what is the utility? What is the function? What do I get out of it other than a picture, a clever sounding, Dogecoin ripoff? What is the utility? Essence provides utility inside Earth2, and that utility will continue to expand across new features, gameplay, and even entirely new future products. Getting tired, guys. Several notable existing and soon to be released features where Essence can and will be spent are as follows. EPLs, which is like your URL for your property, can be customized. Essence can be used to purchase to rename your EPL. Jewels, existing. So is EPLs. Both of these are existing. Essence is necessary for improving a player's jewels. See jewels for more information. Resources, upcoming. Essence is necessary for the production of resources. See resources for more information. Upgrading tier 1 properties to tier 2, upcoming. That's going to be valuable. Essence will be required to upgrade tier 2 properties to tier 1. The price to upgrade tier 2 property to tier 1 will be pinned to the tier 1 dollar value of the land in that country. The amount of essence required will be determined by the value of essence on the decentralized exchanges. That's going to be interesting. Further use cases for Essence will be released, including validation of resources on a property and the construction of hollow buildings. Economic components. The Mentor. The Mentor is a building that is essential for gameplay in Earth 2. They detect ether when it evaporates from the land on the property, and they are built on and turn into essence. Mentors also have the ability to be slotted with jewels. The bigger the property, the larger the slot range on the Mentor. Slotting jewels on your property improves the performance and production of resources and essence through the jewels modifier effects. Ether is an unstable, difficult to detect, and somewhat mysterious matter that evaporates from player-owned land inside Earth 2. Theory has it that when virtual land is claimed and a player's presence is recorded in the binary code of the land itself commits to improving its own environment to the will of the player who owns it. Ether cannot be captured or stored naturally, but it can be detected by a Mentor, and if processed quickly enough by that Mentor, can convert into the very storable and collectible essence. Enough is not yet known about ether, but it would seem that not all ether is identical, which is evident in the varying ether to essence conversion yields. We know that when captured early enough, ether always yields some essence, but never more essence than ether. So that means if you detected 100 ether, you might be able to get 100 essence, but it might be less. It's never going to be more, it might be less. Jewels have a certain chance of spawning on a player's property at varying rates and must be claimed within a limited period of time, after which they vanish again. Jewels are distinguished by tiers, and each tier has additional levels of quality, which all affects the jewel's value. Players can collect jewels, craft them into higher tiers and quality levels, slot them into their mentors, and use them to improve and better target their ecosystem production. Jewel utility will expand into other areas of Earth 2 Metaverse as new features and products are released. Depending on the size, tier, and class of the property, the Mentor will have between 1 and 15 slots that can be slotted with jewels. Jewels have a number of effects on the ecosystem of a property, and the effectiveness is dependent in the color, tier, and quality attributes. These include increasing the effectiveness of producing certain raw material, accelerating the production of certain building blocks, increasing the chance of ether detection rate, increasing the yield of essence when reaching certain stages of ecosystem, and reducing research and or construction times and costs. Jewel crafting. Jewels have a crafting system that allows players to experiment with combining them to create jewels of higher tiers. The quality and tier of crafting outcome will depend on the quality and tiers of the jewel used in the crafting process. Over time, players will discover new recipes they can use to ensure the quality and accuracy of their ecosystem production. If you want some of these recipes, I think I've got all the known recipes now in a list. Those links, you will get access to that if you fill out my contact form. There's an automatic email that sends you all that jazz. So many reasons to fill out that contact form. Jewel crafting continued, and be on my newsletter because I send that stuff out. The contact form, link to it should be in the show notes. Jewel crafting continued. There are undiscovered effects from not so obvious recipes which may create a single jewel but combine effects that otherwise would use higher number of slots. Such jewels require an explorative mind to find them and will carry the name of their discoverers in the future. These recipes will be part of an ongoing design effort as the ecosystem develops and matures. Crafting is available as a tab in the jewel storage window. With this features, players are currently able to shatter jewels into shards, improve jewels with shards in essence, craft new jewels using shards or multiple jewels from their inventory, and discover, unlock, and browse jewel recipes. Jewel slotting. So the recipes are stored once you've discovered one, but they're not there by default. So from what I've seen, mine didn't show up again until I figured them out, and then it would record them so I can follow that recipe again. But don't go in there looking for these jewel recipes. They're not there until you've done at least one. Jewel slotting. The slotting tab of the jewel storage window is where players can slot jewels from their jewel inventory into properties, mentors. As mentioned previously, slotted jewels will affect a property's ether detection rate, resource production, and other property-related production in the future. The jewel slotting window also shows critical information needed for players to make decisions on what jewels and jewel combinations to slot into their property's mentors. Resources. Forget all you know about how resources are mined on our physical Earth. Inside Earth 2, they are no longer dug up, snatched from a pillaged soil, or stolen from an exploited Earth, as there are no more mines. The first set of resources to exist will be oil, coal, gold, limestone, fresh water, wood, sand, and iron. In Earth 2, resources are replicated, not mined into raw materials. This process requires Essence as a critical source of data to complete successfully. Raw materials are replicated from the core binary code that is found under or on the soil of a property, or from what grows on it. Mentor like wood. Mentors process the ether that evaporates from the ground and turn it into essence. The weaver, located inside the mentor, evaluates the binary representation of the soil around the resource contained within the captured essence and uses that data, if compatible, to replicate the raw material. The more advanced this technology is, the smaller the amount of a particular raw material can be whilst still being readable and replicatable by the weaver. Everything is woven primarily from hydrogen, but also contains carbon dioxide and other atmospheric gases. Hydrogen alone makes up about 3% of the mass of the Earth's crust. In total, the Earth is estimated to contain about 1.2 times 1,018 tons of hydrogen. It would take the world's 2011 concrete production 500 million years to equal that amount. Okay, so basically all the concrete we made in 2011, if we were to try to make that much weight, it would be 500 million years for us to make that. Sorry, I just had trouble reading that. That was weird. But lessons have been learned. Technologies to restore hydrogen from waste are already under development. Hydrogen should not become a finite source. Raw materials are a core part of what everything is built from in Earth 2. Almost every type of building developed inside Earth 2 needs raw materials for construction. That's where they says almost. They have a fixed place in both the production chain, and the economy of Earth 2. Raw materials are copied from existing raw materials of a property. Once they exist in their pure form, raw materials can be traded and used for other types of production. In fact, there can be no building production without raw materials in their pure form present in the location where the production is taking place. Interesting. While raw materials will mostly be used to construct ecosystem buildings and produce building blocks, they will also be necessary for research, upgrades, and maintenance. Raw material tiers. The diversity of raw materials used for the ecosystem will grow over time in technology tiers. There will be 8 raw material types to begin with, but over time, it is planned for this number to grow into the 2-digit numbers and possibly beyond. Raw material tiers serve a number of different purposes: introducing a development hierarchy into the building component of the metaverse, supporting early diversification and specialization, supporting the development of a special class of players who will have the opportunity to work their way up until they can afford their own land and assets without the need to outlay any additional funds, without running the danger of being exploited and held asset poor and dependent, safeguarding this play to earn opportunity. More simplified initial gameplay will be introduced in this specific area, teaching players how to play the game during the first technological tiers, and then widening the possibilities significantly so as to increase the complexities of managing larger land ownerships by a single person, thus creating a need for cooperation and collaboration on Earth 2. Progressively, we will introduce a very broad raw material tree, which will make it very difficult for a single player to successfully produce all the different kinds of raw materials, especially ones of higher tiers. The specialization of players in particular areas will force trade to be necessary in order for them to achieve the most of the Earth 2 ecosystem. Creating a hierarchy of materials will encourage player-to-player trading and development that will continue over years to come, will involve players in the process via voting rights where possible. All right, now we're getting into probably the last section, and I'll cut it into a break. Mechanics. Weavers of certain tier will use essence to produce a set amount of raw material measured in storage units per tile. Let's say tier 1, that amount is 100 storage units. Each raw material exists in the ground and in a relative ratio to all other detectable raw materials. This ratio is called occurrence, kind of like frequency. The respective number of units per tile will be turned into this raw material. For instance, if the tile has 10% wood comparative to all detected resources, 12 storage units of wood can be produced if the mentor has a joule socketed, which primes the production of wood. Each raw material is produced in various cubic meter amounts per storage unit. All detectable occurrences combine to make up 100% of the producible raw materials. Thus, in a new tier, the occurrences must be added to the old tiers and then weighted to make up for 100% of the producible units. A heat map will display the distribution of raw materials that exist on players' own properties. This will be good for the secondary market because you'll be able to possibly find some land to buy based on the material that you want to produce and its prevalency. With each new technological tier, the weaver will need to receive an update to allow access to the raw materials in the new tier. Access to old tier raw materials will remain. These raw materials will be added to the possible ground yield in the raw materials heat map. The addition will subsequently alter the occurrence of all other raw materials. The overall production capabilities of the weaver will increase. Once the research and construction of the next tier weaver is complete, the weaver can produce these raw materials according to their new occurrence in the respective property. Interesting, very deeply thought out stuff. So this will be the next section, and I'll cut it and I'll make two versions. Initial creation of a currency, resource data, resource validation. The magic and intrigue of Earth 2 Metaverse is that the place where you stand on the real Earth is represented in the exact geolocation inside Earth 2. This bridge between the two worlds is fundamental for establishing and setting the foundations and various components of Earth 2. Thus, the accurate implementation of raw materials and resource location was crucial to was a crucial factor for Earth 2. A significant amount of time was spent to ensure that the placement of key resources was realistic as possible. We achieved this both internally and via silent partners. We have a base for resource locations consisting, and we have a base of resource locations consisting over 200 million data points measuring over 500 gigabytes in size. Wow. But for us, this was still not accurate enough. And the PRV program we have developed will allow players to claim and validate real-world resource locations over a select period of time, strengthening the existing data implemented. So it seems like if you have a discrepancy or something they don't know, you can give them a correction, but only in the beginning while stuff's still kind of up for grabs. At a very high level, this collaborative effort will see Earth 2 provide a claims manager where players can see all claims and create their own claims, a map representation where players can see areas with open claims, an internal tool where Earth 2 staff can monitor insights about claims, identifying claims with higher validations, and reviewing for potential approval. This will be one of the first Essence reward systems where players can earn additional Essence for correctly validating player-created claims. Read more on this process at a link that you can see here. The link is earth2.io/news/progress-update-on-resources, and we will release further details once validation process begins. All right, that is going to wrap it up for the first half. Now, there is a second half. There's probably going to be a link in the show notes below. As you can see, there's a lot of information in the first half. Expect just as much information in the second half. Equally exciting stuff, so you're going to want to make sure you get that. Don't miss out on that. Don't get half the story. You want the full thing so that you can implement that towards your Earth 2 strategy. Again, I want to remind you to subscribe to both the YouTube and the podcast so you don't miss out on anything, and check out the show notes for links to podcasts, YouTube, all that jazz, but especially ways to get free land, money, and NFTs, right?